And now I'd like to turn to tonight's guest speaker, Brian McGrory. Brian has dedicated his career to journalism. He served, at the end of last year, he completed a 10-year run as editor of the Boston Globe, during which time the Globe won 3 Pulitzer Prizes, was nominated for a dozen others. He's managed a challenging environment, and during that time, the paper grew its digital subscription base by 240,000. Which has helped it. It's been challenging times. I'm not saying that the paper wasn't losing money, we know, but that it really helped it to continue to grow and soldier through. In his 34 years at the Globe, Brian's been a general assignment reporter, a White House correspondent, a national correspondent, and an award-winning Metro columnist. He's authored 5 published books. He serves on the boards of the News Leaders Association, the World Editors Forum, and most recently has joined the board of the Baltimore Banner, which is a great nonprofit online publication down there doing terrific work. He's chair now of the Department of Journalism at the College of Communication at Boston University and continues to write a regular column for the Boston Globe. Please join me in welcoming Brian McGrory.
Thank you, John, for those very kind remarks. Thank you for the invitation to be here. Thank you to the board members who are here and the members of the committee that put on this extraordinary dinner in tribute to Anne. Now may be the right or the exact wrong time to make a confession. I was born in Boston. I was raised in Boston and all around Boston. I went to college in Maine. I've lived there in Boston all my life, but for a few stints in Washington. I never stepped foot in Vermont until I was in my 30s. I had been all over the world. I'd been to the Philippines, China, Thailand, Tokyo, virtually every European capital covering the President of the United States, Venezuela, Moscow. My first time in Vermont was in the late 1990s. I decided to spend Memorial Day weekend up here on a getaway. It was the hottest weekend I have ever felt in my life. The very nice people at our Woodstock hotel decided it wasn't really necessary to put water in the pool. You have these black flies up here in May that literally swarm your head like a fleet of Apache helicopters. I was a very brash 30-something-year-old columnist, and I wrote a column about my weekend in Vermont that began with the line, "I must have gone left when I should have gone right." And I ended up 100 miles from the nearest fried clam. The kicker was, never again, Vermont, never again. But a funny thing happens on your way from your 30s to actual maturity. And for me, one of them was my stepdaughter attending Middlebury College. She got in 4 years ago, and they were 4 of the most blissful years of our lives. She got really sick of seeing me up here, but I fell head over heels for your wonderful state. Middlebury itself is gorgeous. The cookies at the Otter Creek Bakery. Burlington, the Hotel Vermont, Hen of the Woods. I loved it all, and I couldn't get enough of it. And while I was here, partly during the pandemic, after I was vaccinated, I really took to reading Vermont Digger and was really amazed by what I was seeing. Which is a long way of saying when John reached out to invite me up here, my kid graduated in May, I couldn't accept the invitation fast enough. And I'm thinking that we should do a dinner like this once a month for Anne, and I will come every time. Although the fact is, for Anne Galloway, I would have gone to Buffalo or Cleveland to do it. For just a moment, if you would, I'd like to put a little context around what Anne and everyone in this room has accomplished over the last 14 years. The industry, as you've heard already and you know, was utterly decimated. It was hit first by that awful recession in 08, 09. but it was hit all along, beforehand and after, by forces that we literally could not control, most of them having to do with the internet. In a place like the Globe, we used to be a $200 million a year business in classified advertising. Those are the little ads in the back of the Sunday paper that you would never read unless you were looking for a job or a place to live. It was a huge business for the Globe and for other places. At the same time, the internet was wiping away, cleaning away display advertising. And Google and Facebook were accounting for over 80% of all digital advertising. So even when we went online, we were having an awful time selling ads. Readers, God love them, started expecting our journalism for free, not realizing that what we do is an incredibly expensive as well as important proposition. We were in real trouble. And this was compounded, as you well know, by private equity-driven newspaper chains, which you've had familiarity with here in Vermont. They bought up otherwise reasonably healthy, although less healthy news organizations, and then quite literally strip mined them for all they were worth. It wasn't that long ago here in Vermont that you had many, many great news organizations. Some places have recovered, but are profoundly changed. The Globe, back in the heyday, had a newsroom staff of about 540 people. When I left, we had 250 people. The Washington Post, as you've seen recently, is still in a lot of trouble, and they're very fortunate that they have one of the wealthiest men in the world owning it, but that still doesn't get them out of a $100 million hole. The Wall Street Journal has a great niche, and the New York Times is in a really great place because of their big bet on digital subscribers. I will say at the Globe, we were able to turn it around. I appreciate John bringing this up by focusing entirely on digital readership. We still have a print product. We charge a great deal of money for it. I hope some of you are subscribers up here. We charge north of $1,000 a year for a print subscription. I often joke internally that there's going to be a day when we have one subscriber, probably the car dealer Herb Chambers, who spends $100 million a year on his subscription, and we'll keep putting it out. A few good things happened at the Globe that couldn't really happen anyplace else. First, we had billionaire owners buy us out, and they were very, very patient to a point. Those billionaire owners, John and Linda Henry, were also insistent that we treat the Globe like a business and that we stop losing money in the way that we were. John's solution was, let's start charging what our journalism is worth. I want $1 a day online. When he brought this up about 10 years ago, this was heresy. Most people were selling subscriptions for $25, $50 a year in journalism. John wanted $360 a year. I told him in one private conversation that even though he rescued the Globe, he was single-handedly going to be responsible for ruining it. And he nodded politely and said, that's nice. Go ahead and do what I say, which we did. We started charging $1 a day, and we changed the mantra of the newspaper from being the paper of record to being the paper of interest. We're competing in all sorts of ways with places like Netflix and other subscription services. And we knew that if it felt obligatory to write, it was probably obligatory to read, and people didn't feel the obligation to read that anymore. So we reoriented. And then we did something very, very controversial. At the peak of COVID, or at the onset of COVID, when news organizations had decided to give their journalism away for free as a public service, we made the decision that this was a time when our journalism was worth more than any other time, and we should continue to charge for it. We offered a deal to people, $1 for the first 6 months. Just give us your credit card and your email. And what we saw amid some controversy over our decision was that it took us 7 years to get our first 100,000 digital subscribers. It took us less than 7 months to get our next 100,000 digital subscribers. And we are now in a position where our digital subscription base can fund almost 2 of our newsrooms. So I feel like we're in really solid ground. But just as the Globe could never achieve the scale of the New York Times, including financially, local places, news organizations in places like Vermont can achieve the scale of a place like the Boston Globe. Vermont specifically, as you well know, is a state with enormous successes and outsized and obvious needs. I don't have to tell you again that you had really great news organizations here until about 20 years ago. But circumstances decimated so many of them. Spirals in journalism tend to go in one direction, and you felt that really hard up here. And then along came Anne Galloway. I keep hearing stories about how she began, including tonight, in the throes of a scary recession, pushed around by a beleaguered industry. She set out on her own, wandering the hallways of the State House and the committee rooms, carrying that camera, a notebook and a pen, writing as fast as she could and recording, scaring the bejesus out of so many legislators. They probably sensed then that they knew they didn't have a chance. Anne did it with equal parts brains, wherewithal, and passion. There was no roadmap at that time, none. Similar nonprofits simply did not exist. There was only a public library, and it's a well-told story that Anne would haunt it regularly. Specifically on what, to get what kind of information, I'm not sure, because she needed so much. She needed to learn how to open a nonprofit. She needed to learn how to operate a content management system. She needed to learn how to hire. She needed to learn how to get donors. She needed to learn management. She needed to learn almost everything you needed to learn in running a news organization. Somehow she did. Soon enough, there was a downtown storefront. It's well told that staffers jerry-rigged a little news ticker in the front window so that people could see the headlines when they walked by. Gradually, and then suddenly, as these things often work, VT Digger caught on. What Anne did with the founding of VT Digger is a gift to the state of Vermont. You know that it's a gift. She also gave a gift to the entire downtrodden industry. Back when she started, when all of you started, there was only ProPublica. The Texas Tribune was just getting underway at the same time. Anne was in every possible way a pioneer. What's happened in those last 14 years is something to behold. A stable, even growing news organization that covers the better part of a state and has kept countless, and I mean countless, people honest. Legislators, business people, people who think the last thing they want in life is to be caught in Anne Galloway's very firm grip. Anne is well known for her late night emails. Anne is also well known for her passion and her profanity. Often those three things are combined. She is well known for her sharp news eye and her exacting expectations. She is well known for her love of Vermont and her love of journalism. She is especially well known for holding powerful people to account, as well as the institutions that they run. This is the essence of what great journalists stand for, and it is at the core of what Anne and Vermont Digger do. But in the process, Anne and VT Digger have done something else as well. Truly great news organizations don't simply tell the public what's wrong. They also share with the public what's going right. They give people a sense of pride and purpose. They offer them the facts and the context to make sense of an increasingly complex world. They provide common ground and give common cause. And this is what VT Digger has done. This is Anne's legacy. Anne is passionate, she is pragmatic, whether it be with an expose on the hijinks of people at JPEAK who thought they could get away with things that they couldn't. It's also with the extraordinary coverage there will be award-winning coverage of the aftermath of the floods in Vermont, when VT Digger was ever more essential. And now we're seeing that model cropping up all over America. There are broad efforts in New Hampshire and Maine. There are big, ambitious initiatives in Baltimore and Chicago, in Houston and in Memphis. There are literally thousands upon thousands of local nonprofits cropping up to help solve the problem of a lack of journalism in a questionable democracy. In every locale where these news organizations are being launched, there is one true thing. Vermont Digger is on their minds. And all of your success is what they're trying to turn into their success. You are serving as a model for an entire nation. Maybe they know Anne, possibly they don't, but they know of the success that you've experienced up here. It has taken hundreds of people to make VT Digger what it's become. Dozens and dozens of elite journalists, reporters, editors, so many others. It has taken marketing experts, it's taken technologists, finance specialists, and it's taken donors, many, many generous donors. We could always use more donors. But at the center of all this, there is one person who for 14 years has thought about Vermont Digger the first thing in the morning and the last thing at night, and that is Anne Galloway. There are very few people, Anne, who have accomplished what you have. You've made a state better, and you've given hope to a very challenged industry. It's an honor to be here to speak, and I thank you for all you've done. Thank you.